After all I've given you! Here! Enough! Here! Bend the knee! The wolf must feed! Enough! Here! Bend the knee! The wolf must feed!
Hello, this is hopefully a much quicker sort of update than the usual videos. I haven't played this character too much since the last video. Path of Exile 2 hasn't been super fun recently. A lot of like the nerfs and stuff like that, especially if you're not playing meta builds and like Lightning Spear Amazon and shit. But I digress. So, level 85, I think this is like 2 levels higher than it was before, I don't remember. But we've made some other changes. Quick run through the gear. We use this. The build revolves around Bloodbarrier for the line inflict corrupted blood for 5 seconds on block, dealing 50% of your maximum life as physical damage per second. This stacks up to 10 times, so 500% of your maximum life at max stacks. It has a 3% to max block chance corruption. We also use the anvil for 5% maximum block chance. This can be corrupted to 6, but it's about like 2 divines, and you also can anoint it. I have anointed parrying motion for 12% increased block chance, 1% increased movement speed for each time you've blocked in the past 10 seconds. I wanted to see how far I could take it with the sort of cheapest gear possible, so I'm using Veil of the Night for 50% increased maximum life and 10 to 20 to all attributes. This does have the downside of you have no elemental resistances, which means your element resistances are 0. The downside is they cannot be raised by any means. The upside is they cannot be penetrated, and they cannot be lowered by curses or exposure. Elemental damage can't penetrate below 0 in Path of Exile 2, so you're kind of, even though you have 0 element resistances, you kind of take some of these effects out of play. So to mitigate elemental resistances, or sorry, elemental damage, we use Black Braid, which is a levelless unique. You can equip at level 1. We use this for the line armor applies to elemental damage. Now, armor, this only applies to hits. So you have no way to mitigate elemental damage over time. So ignite, we have some ways to mitigate through some points on the tree, but cold damage over time, lightning damage over time, we have no way to really mitigate. Thankfully, they're not particularly common. There's a mob called Undertaker that has a cold damage over time spell that doesn't hit, so it can't be blocked. There is the Mana Siphoner kind of donut, lightning donut rare mod that siphons your mana and deals lightning damage over time. So there's not too many sources, but how do we get the most out of our armor for as cheap as possible? I wanted to try Gore Girdle, which was added in patch 0.2 along with Bloodbarrier. This has some decent sort of okay stats on it, but we use it for defend with 200% of armor to sort of double your effective armor when it comes to using armor for mitigation calculations. This does come with the downside of maximum physical damage reduction is 50%. This, in effect, in my opinion, you will almost never notice anyway. Because armor is, the way that armor is calculated, they changed it recently, so I'm not super sure how much better it is now, but the most up-to-date information, concrete information we have is, if I have 5,000 armor and I take a 5,000 damage hit, I will mitigate 9%. Excuse me. So, you can kind of see the likelihood of you getting to 50% mitigation is pretty low for higher damage hits. The lower the damage, the better the mitigation. The higher damage, the worse the mitigation. So we have 4,400 armor with the current setup. With the 200% armor mod Gore Girdle, that gives us 8,800-ish armor for mitigation calculation. So that definitely helps a lot. So other items we're using is Empire's Grasp. This is because we're using Seismic Cry. Seismic Cry is a skill that knocks enemies back in a circle around you. Using Empire Grasp, we can turn that knockback into like a vacuum and just suck everything in. Which, when combined with the Warcaller's Bellow, means that you can basically stack enemies on top of rears, then explode them all and just delete the whole pack. I am also using Hammer of Faith. This is a relatively expensive. This one item is probably more expensive than every item in this build combined. This is around about 1 divine when I bought it. And I'm only using it for the gain a random shrine effect every 10 seconds, or random shrine buff every 10 seconds. There's a couple of buffs here that you can get that are pretty good. There's one that gives you either more maximum life or increased maximum life. I currently have 4,500. When that specific shrine happens, I go to just under 6,000 life. So that's more damage and more tankiness. There's also shrines like the Fire Shrine that gives meteors, the Lightning Shrine that gives lightning bolts, the Cold Shrine that gives the like cold projectiles that swirl around you. These all also come with the effect of giving you 100% of damage gained as that element. And there's also a Chaos one that makes enemies explode when they're killed. Now, all of these, the damage gained as extra, actually affect the corpse explosion damage as well. So when you explode a corpse with your Warcry, it deals 25% of its life as physical damage to enemies around it, but then if you have one of these shrine effects, it give 100% of that damage as extra damage of that element. And because you're scaling so much generic sort of increased damage, it's definitely noticeable. And there's a few other sort of small shrine effects that are pretty good as well. There's an acceleration shrine that gives skill speed and movement speed. There's one that gives increased rarity, and just a few other little things like that. You don't have to use this. If you didn't want to use this, I would go with either a one-handed or two-handed mace with T1 strength, decent attack speed roll for if you want to use Leap Slam, and then a two-handed mace is only better in that it can have one extra socket for robust runes. And that's kind of it. For rare items, life, strength, chaos res, life, strength, chaos res, life, strength, chaos res, and movement speed. I don't have any strength on these boots. I haven't upgraded these yet. I've kind of just upgraded items as I felt like I needed to. Charms, I'm using Beer's Anguish just because you're already scaling life anyway, so it's just free damage when it triggers, and it also helps you mitigate Ignite. I'm using some old-ass charms from before the charm mods were buffed, and this is literally just a Silver Charm for slows, and an Amethyst Charm for capping the last little bit of Chaos Res whenever I need it. So that kind of covers the items. Quick run through the tree. First Ascendancy would be Renly's Training, gives you 40% base chance to block from your equipped shield instead of the shield's value, so no matter what the block chance is on your shield, you will get 40% chance to block. Your second Ascendancy will be Turtle Charm, 25% less chance to block, but you can block damage from all hits while your shield is not raised. So basically if you're not using Raised Shield, Parry, Resonating Shield, things like that, you can block damage from all hits. By default, you can only block strikes and projectiles, but this will let you block anything that hits, which is very good. Warcaller's Bellow, which I mentioned before, this will be your third Ascendancy. Warcries Explode Corpses, which deals 25% of their life as physical damage, and then your last Ascendancy would be Great Wolf's Howl for ignoring Warcry cooldowns. You don't explicitly need this. You can actually run Seismic Cry with the pin support gem, because it stops skills from stunning And Seismic Cry only goes on cooldown if it hits a heavy stunned enemy. With Warcaller's Bellow, the Corpse Explosion, if it doesn't outright kill an enemy, sometimes it will heavy stun it. And if you hit that heavy stunned enemy with Seismic Cry, it will go on cooldown for a few seconds, but it doesn't happen often enough for it to be too clunky. For the actual tree itself, you're basically just looking for strength and block chance. Go down here for block chance, a little bit of strength. There's one node here for increased block chance. This is literally just the last 5% that I needed to go from 82% to 83%, which is my current max block. Go down here to Lay Siege. This gives you 1% increased damage per 1% chance to block. This also gives, Offensive Stance also gives 1% increased damage per 1% chance to block. So this is, with 83% block chance, this is just over 160% increased damage from 2 nodes, just on your main defensive stat as well. For Ignite mitigation, we are using this wheel here for Fireproof, which is 55% reduced effect of Ignite on you, which helps a lot when it comes to Ignite mitigation. Things like Trail of Fire mods from rares will eat your ass, and it would be so much worse without these notes here. Because we're using Warcries, we do Guttural Roar for Warcry speed and Warcry area of effect. Deafening Cries, because you're Warcrying so much, this just gives you free damage basically. We use Blood Magic to mitigate, to basically solve skill costs. We have such a high life pool that there's no point in using mana, especially when combined with Urgent Call, which gives us the mod Recover 2% of maximum life mana when you Warcry. Because your mana pool is so big, this will generally always be more than the cost of the skill itself. So this is basically just pure recovery. We're going for some small strength nodes here. You don't need to care about brute strength. This, at 300 strength, this is like 20% increased damage. It's really not that noticeable. Unbending Wheel for life. Vigilance for block chance. Beef for strength. We're using Blade Catcher just for the 15 strength. The Defend with 200% of armor against critical hits does not apply to you. Defend with 200% of armor is either an on or off type of mod. So you're either defending with 200% or you're not, kind of thing. On top of that, we take Titanic for 5% increased strength, and Polymathy for the same thing, 7% increased attributes. We also down here we have Leatherbound Gauntlets, +1 to evasion rating per 1 armor on equipped gloves, and then Iron Reflexes to turn that evasion rating into armor. This basically just gives you kind of like squeezing as much armor as possible out of the gear you have. We take heavy armor for the same thing, 100% of strength requirements from boots, gloves and helmets also added to armor, and this is just a little bit of recoup for physical damage prevented. And that's kind of the gist of it. That's basically everything. Again, Giant's Blood, wield a 2-handed mace in one hand. And then for jewels, we have 4 jewel sockets, and each of these is just Warcry speed and block chance. Before you get block chance jewels, which are pretty cheap, they're like, I don't know, 3 to 5 exalts or something like that for max block chance and anything above 18% Warcry speed. Before you get these, you'll want to take these block chance nodes here, and you'll probably have to take a couple of these block chance nodes here as well. That's basically the gist of it. It has been surprisingly effective. I didn't expect it to be able to clear a Citadel, but it apparently can. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I hopefully have another random build soon, potentially.